Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today's card's going to be a very fun and inspired by Nicole Spohr. I believe she did this, I don't know if it was a couple years ago maybe, same sort of idea, and I just adored it, so I thought I'm going to take complete inspiration. So my card doesn't look anything like hers, but that's the idea behind inspiration, isn't it? So to start with, I've got an MFT cloud. This is the mini clouds, I believe, stencil, and some white stamping cardstock, and I'm just using some distress ink over the top of that. Kind of heavy-handed. It's obviously been a while since I've done this, so I realised that I probably went a little heavier than I should have for the ink, but it doesn't matter, it works really well. And the ink also sort of smooths out a little bit after it starts to dry off. So yeah, so I just sort of inked up a little around the edges from the stencil onto the cardstock, and then turned it, inked the next layer and turned it, and so on. So very easy to do, just with a little blending brush. And then afterwards I will go back, because the bottom section was too white, for want of a better word, because there's like no cloud at the bottom. So I will take some more ink and just sort of close that in, I guess, with the ink, and just so it looks more uniform, and like the clouds carry on all the way to the ground. So I'll bring in some more ink now and just sort of fill those white clouds at the bottom, because they were just a little too stark for what I was looking for. I could have put another layer of cloud itself and that would have covered that up, but this worked too. And then, of course, I'm going to spritz it. So, when do I not? And then I dabbed up the excess water with a little cloth thing that I have. These two dies, which I will go back to in a minute. The pumpkins, one of the pumpkins is from a Mama Elephant die set. It's one of the Favour Box dies. I think it's just called Pumpkin. The other two pumpkins are from a Honeybee Stamps die set, which I believe is called The Name's Jack, I think. All the supplies will be listed below. So I decided on this. I had some orange cardstock. You can do whatever you want, whatever scraps you've got. This is what I tend to use for all these little die cuts and things, which is what scraps are handy for. And I used some Crackling Campfire. I thought it was a nice contrast on the orange cardstock that I had. And I'm using the 3 stencils that are in the mini stencil set from Tim Holtz, which is Stampers Anonymous, which I think is set 22. But basically there's like almost like a burlap-y kind of pattern, the pumpkins and then the 4 leaves. And so I used them on all 3 of the pumpkins. I just kind of looked at the larger the stencil pattern went on the largest pumpkin, and then the smallest one on the smallest one, if that makes sense. And then just going around the edges with the same ink, so that it just sort of gives it that nice distress kind of edged. I don't know, it just looks good. And of course I spritzed. Now obviously this isn't watercolor paper or anything like that, so the reaction, although it happens, it's not as effective as it would be on like a mixed media or watercolor paper. The mat I'm working on is also my Waffle Flower media mat, which I drag out every now and again to use. And then on these grass pieces, I used the Horizon Slimline, I think that's what it's called, from Honeybee. And that's where the fence and the grass comes from. And again, it was a scrap piece of green that I thought worked well with the oranges of the pumpkin. And I used, I believe, Rustic Wilderness on the edge of that, just to give it a bit of depth. Good old clean up, of course. And then I oh, am I? It was a while since I did this. Oh, I'm going to start putting these pieces together. I think my camera cuts out. Yep. So I went and got a sentiment, because I suddenly realised I didn't have a sentiment for my stamp set. So I'm going to use the Which Way to the Candy, or Which Way is the Candy from MFT. And for my sentiment. I thought it works. It was just a sweet little sentiment in there, and it fit in the space I had left. So this cardstock is from Gina K. So I actually think this is the same colour that I used on the pumpkins. And the name of it will be below. And then I'm going to take the fence and the grass and start arranging and deciding where I'm going to actually pop this. I kind of went back and forth between using a wet adhesive and a dry adhesive. Wet adhesive, this one was blocked again. It's the problem I seem to have with all my wet adhesives. This little one with the fine tip has actually been doing really well, so I'm quite impressed so far, touch wood. But the I went back and forth on it because dry adhesive would work just as well with this sort of layering. There's not actually a lot of dimension that we're going to put on here. We'll put a little bit of dimension, but there's a lot going on, so it's going to look more dimensional even if you stick everything flat. I will add a little bit of dimension later on, but first of all I'm just getting my fence panel, that's the word, my fence on there. And I will trim the excess of the edges so it lines up. I also die cut the piece that we originally had, or maybe I die cut it first and then inked over the top with some waffle flower like layering dies. Those are super handy from any other companies. A lot of them do the sort of layering, sort of like rectangles, squares, circles, anything like that, and they're really, really super handy to have. So there's the Mama Elephant pumpkin. Isn't he cute? And then this is the cat from the, I want to say the Bunny and Pop, no, the Pop-Up or something, Cat and Bunny. It's also a Mama Elephant set, and it's basically there's two sets that coordinate together. One is to pop up inside a card, so this is where the cat and the bunny come in, and the other one, it sort of makes like a little bookmark to go over the edge of a card or your, or your book when you read it. And the two coordinate really nicely together, and all the pieces sort of mix and match. So I'm using the one that actually is the pop-up version that will be like what you would have on the inside of a card. And I built my cat from there. So it's very easy. There's lots of pieces that go on to it to create the little kitty cat or the bunny, but it's super cute. So I've used a couple of the other ones, the dog and maybe the dog and the cat, I think, on a previous video. So if you want to check that out, that'd be really super. But in a totally different kind of card. But they're really cute. And Mama Elephant, Lawn Fawn, honeybee stamps, they all do these wonderful stamps and dies and things like that. And I love all die cut cards as well. So for the longest part, this took me to work out where I wanted to put this cat, because the idea is that he's kind of like hanging over or slouching over the pumpkin. And I couldn't get my eye into where it needed to be, so he goes where he goes in the end, but it still looks quite cute. He sort of works. So I just kind of guessed in the end and just made it work. I'm also going to tip my head of the cat and the pumpkin itself, just so that it gives it a little bit of something. So it's not so sort of straight lined, which I can't line straight lines up. So you guys have been here long enough, you know that. It's just not, I just can't do it. So I decided to tilt them both slightly so that there was a bit of a bit more interest as well. And then that way I don't have to worry if it's lined up straight, because it's supposed to be squonk. So that's my feeling anyway. And this is where I fiddled and faffed with the cat for ages. And you're going to watch me do it to just work out where I wanted him. In the end, he sits okay on there, but I still think he doesn't look quite right. I think maybe I should have moved the stalk of the pumpkin in front of him, maybe, or something, so there was a bit more depth and dimension to that. But Maybe I should just go and watch Nicole's video again and see how she did that bit, because I just, like I say, I couldn't get it to work as well as what I wanted it to. And then of course there was the tail that I nearly forgot to put on the poor cat, so I had to figure that one out too. But this is the nice thing about having die sets like this, is that you create the whole scene, you create all these pieces like puzzle, create all these little pieces and things that you can then put together to create this scene, and you just make it work, and you make it and you put it together, and it always looks pretty cool. Like I say, my cat's a little off, but he's fine. I also made his eyes green because I thought that was kind of spooky and Halloweeny. And what I should have also done is, and I didn't think at the time, there was a lot going on at the time, was I could have also added either some black gel pen or something, and then a white dot of gel pen on top of that when it was dried, to give him actual like centers of his eyes. I'll probably go back and do that afterwards, but that's another thing, is little details like that work really, really well. Really, really well. Can't talk. So I finally decided that was where he was going. So I think he kind of works and kind of looks like he's supposed to be there, but I think maybe I could have tweaked it a little bit better so it looks a bit better than that. I think maybe if the stalk was in front of his face, it would have had that dimensional look, like he was actually slouching over the pumpkin. But anyway, I will figure it out so I can do it again, because it was good fun. So for the front grass, I have popped that up on some foam tape just for a bit of dimension. Like I said, there's not going to be a ton of it on here, but it's just a little bit to add something. And then I'm going to take the 2 pumpkins. Before I do that, I'm going to stamp my sentiment. So the sentiment in this is a Halloween hello, which fits perfectly in that space there. And it's also just a nice little Halloweeny sentiment, I thought. So I'm just going to grab a, which one did I use? My Archival jet black ink. I've been using that a lot lately, and I really, really love it. It's a really good ink. And then I'm going to grab my 2 littler pumpkins and I'm going to put some foam tape just on the top part of their heads, because the front grass is already popped up. So the top of their head would be hanging off that piece. So I need the like where his mouth is needs to have flat adhesive, like a double-sided tape, and then where the top of the head would be needs to have some foam, and that way it means that the whole thing it levels, if that makes sense. So it won't look all wonky. So basically, I never know how to describe this, and so many others of you just describe it so perfectly, and I'm like, I can never get the wording right. But basically, you want the pumpkin doesn't want to be sitting a little wonky, so you want him to lie flat. So in order to do that, you just have to add the foam where there's a gap, basically. So once I've done that, I then turn it over and just stuck some foam, not foam tape, you could put foam tape on, some regular tape onto the back, and we'll get this stuck to my card base, which is a standard A2 size card. And that's pretty much it, guys. It's a very easy peasy card. A lot of die cutting, obviously, and I like adding extras like the ink to the pumpkins to give them a little bit of character. Like I say, I should have added something to her eyes, because her eyes are a little, I mean, they're green, but it's like I forgot to do that bit. Like I say, there was a lot going on, so it's a little bit like I forgot. And I could also add extras to like all the pumpkin eyes and their mouths and things like that. You can add sparkles. I did add these little sprinkles from Lucy's cards, and they're little bats. They're like little clay bats, and I love them. So I just chucked a bunch on there, and kind of where they landed was kind of where they stayed. And then I used an embellishment wand and my little glue applicator thing, and just got them stuck on there. And like I say, it's just a finishing touch. But once I'd done that, I completely, like I say, I forgot to add the other bits to to the little kitty and that. But you can add glossy accents, and you can add some sparkle if you want to add sparkle. I mean, I know it's Halloween, but it doesn't matter. Sparkles all year. And I think it's really cute. It's just it just turned out better than I thought that it would. So I was really chuffed. So thank you, Nicole, for your inspiration behind this one. And hopefully I'll remember, and I'll try and what's the word in this day and age, tag her in it, so that she can at least see that this is what she inspired me to do. So anyway, guys, I hope you've enjoyed this. I hope you drag out your dies and create something like this, and use your stencils on your die cuts to give a bit more character to them. So I will see you next time. Bye.